What is up, guys? John Nelson, and you are listening to the Starting Block Podcast. If you are looking for a show that's going to give you the insight into complete athletic development and give you the tools to win, whether you're the athlete, the parent, or the coach, then you have come to the right spot. Guys, today we have Q&A, and Q&A is where myself and my co-host, Chris, what's up,
What's
sir?
up, guys?
Where we take your questions that you have submitted to us and we answer them in this episode. And these questions can be anything relating to athletic training, strength, speed, power, agility, nutrition. Usually Mandy will come on and get those nutrition questions. She's kind of the guru in that respect. But before we get going with the Q&A, let's kind of review a little bit about how our show operates for our new listeners. So first off, thank you for joining as always. And our show works a little differently than most. We have a couple different episodes within the Starting Block Podcast. So Q&A is one of our main episodes. We have those every other Tuesday, and that's what you're listening to today. Then we have a guest interview, and our guest interview, we usually do those every other week as well. So they kind of go in between the Q&As. And that's where Chris and I will bring on our colleagues from across the country and across the globe, and they answer your questions and share their stories of how they win and what they do with their clients or patients. And we got a great guest list, and we're very thankful for everybody who's joined us and everybody who's coming on here in the very near future. And then the third type of episode that we have is going to be our Friday Fire and Fact. And that episode is kind of a solo gig on my end, and that's where I take your questions that are related to athletic development, but more so on maybe like the marketing or branding or questions kind of around that side of stuff, maybe a little more motivational, in nature. I don't really answer the training questions on those shows. That's more for, me and Chris and Mandy do on this one, but that's what Friday Fire and Fact is. Now, all of your questions can be submitted to us either via email at info@elitelevelperformance.com, or they can be submitted via social media. You can reach me at ELP_John, and they can reach you where, Chris?
At Fast and Agile 49. Some underscores in there. Fast and Agile 49 on Instagram. Just
on Instagram, okay.
DM me.
Cool. And remember, guys, we're also on YouTube as well. So we're on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, and you can leave your questions on YouTube as well. We get those, and we'll be happy to answer them as well. So that is the breakdown, and we'll get started here in just a minute. How you been this week, Chris?
I've been great. It's been transitioning back into full-time training again after everybody's gone back to regular school hours, and so it's kind of nice to have a noon break where it was full of athletes the last couple of weeks, Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah, it's like I love Christmas and like summer break, because I love to see all our college crew and pro crew or whatever come back, but it definitely adds to the work day a little bit, like
without question.
No lie.
We love you guys, but so let's be honest.
Yeah. Yep. And so also we'll make a note that today's episode is sponsored by the Newbie. If if you're watching this online, you can see that I'm hooked up to it back here, and if you're listening to audio, my whole left arm is covered in electrodes at the moment.
Yep.
So shout out to Garrett, Salpeter, and NewFit. You guys are getting me right from not being able to move my left arm.
How's the alligator you were fighting?
Seriously, I'm like Happy Gilmore over there, like jumping in the pond and beating him up. Yeah, so here's my short story. Here is, for those of you who don't know me, I like to I spend a lot of time outside in my free time, just like rebuilding stuff, and my wife and I bought kind of a fixer-upper, and I'm in the process of rebuilding the deck right now, and you might have seen it on my personal Instagram page, and like I'm tearing it down, but it's so old that like the screws have they're not even stripped. They're like melted into the wood, like into the joist. And then there's like 18 coats of paint over the deck. So like I couldn't even like rip them out or take a sledgehammer and like beat them out. They were so like just glued into the joist. I had to take a reciprocating saw. It took me like 2.5 hours to saw all the boards out. and I am so sore. Like I thought it was just soreness, but now it's like it's been a week, dude. It's like this will not go away, and it's one of those pains. It's like I can't tell where it is. You
Right.
know, it's like it always is bugging me, but like it's just getting worse. It's like I woke up this morning and my arms at like 90 degrees. It's like rigor mortis set in. Like I just can't move. So
Yeah. So now, yeah,
um,
time to do something about it. There you go.
oh my gosh, yeah. So shout out to you, Garrett. Thanks for helping me
Yeah,
out,
it's not
man.
like we don't have the best
Um,
technology in the world. It's the problem is sometimes we got to learn to use it ourselves, right? On
yeah,
ourselves.
no kidding. But what's even like more pathetic? I'm not even gonna lie. Like it's lame. It's like this week. I was trying to show like Brent Rooker is going to be coming on our show. Brent's one of our athletes. He plays for the Oakland A's. He's a great dude, and like he was totally giving me crap about this because like I literally couldn't demonstrate how to do an upper body exercise with this arm, but then I couldn't demo a plyo exercise either because I blew my ankle out last weekend too, running sprints with the horses. Like I tripped in a hole and inside ankle bone high and all that. Yeah, but when you step into a hole like at full speed, like sorry. I don't really care if muscles are in balance and inside ankle bone high. It's probably going to go. So it's like the whole left side of my body just doesn't even work right
Yeah.
now. It's
Yeah.
getting old sucks
Yeah. For
here.
those.
I don't know what I'd do if we couldn't fix
Yeah. For those of
ourselves.
you listening, yeah, John's kind of a sight. He's got a little bit. He got the electrodes everywhere. So
Yeah, and like what's actually more important? Like I mean, it's more important. I was just gonna say it. Like I need to have function, sure, but this arm is about to get its tattoo sleeve here in like the next 2 or
all
3
right.
weeks, and like it's very imperative that this arm works and functions
Absolutely.
well.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so anyway, that's been my week. But yeah. So, anyways, let's go ahead and get to these questions, man. Let's start out question one. Question one was from one of our college crew, and they wanted to know: as your muscles fill with blood, does it make it harder to execute your sets and reps? And how does blood flow or getting the pump actually affect you overall?
Uh,
So,
yeah. Good
why
question.
don't you go for it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Good question. Yes. I mean, if you are getting if you're getting that pump, if you will, and you're building some lactic acid, and of course you got to remember your muscles are filling with blood kind of as a result. It's really an inflammatory response. That's almost like your body responds to damage. Okay. And again, we realize that strength training, it's controlled damage, but it's still damage. So your body begins a healing process right away by pulling blood into that area. And so if you are getting that pump and you're getting fatigue, yes, it's going to impair your later reps, your later sets, your later whatever it is you're doing. If you're doing bicep curls, bench press, whatever. Yes, but you'll also notice that if you're doing, say, heavier, very low rep sets that don't take an extended period of time, you really don't get a whole lot of that same pump. You don't get a lot of that same lactic acid buildup. And so you can usually, continue on a closer to your higher level performance when you're going heavier and lower repetitions. Does that make sense? Than it is if you're, say, trying to do multiple sets of, say, 10 to 15 repetitions, you're probably going to start burning out and your reps and your performance is going to drop, especially with upper body,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah, I feel like the question has a little bit more in my mind. It has a little bit more to do with actually the actions of the muscle rather than the blood. I mean, I see where he's going with
Yep.
the question, but my brain naturally goes to the side of like, okay, fatigue is nothing more than a muscle that has shortened as much as it can shorten. It can't shorten anymore. That's ultimately what fatigue is, right? And so that's why when you're doing, let's just say, bicep curls, like a bodybuilding thing, like bicep curls to failure, you end up getting the pump, or the pump, as Arnold would say, like the pump. Actually, I'm not going to talk about him. I'm not a fan of his anymore after what he said a few years ago. But anyways, tangent there. But getting the pump, like what ends up happening is, yeah, blood rushes to the area, And you correct me if I'm wrong on this, Chris. I mean, I haven't looked at the research in forever on something like on, the sliding filament theory and actin myosin and all that stuff. But blood rushes to the area, but the muscle fibers still shorten. And there comes a point in time where it just basically can't shorten anymore. And that's where the fatigue really sets in. I don't really think it has as much to do with the blood as much as it does with just the muscle not being able to contract
Right.
anymore. That's what would ultimately impact.
Yeah, if
you.
the blood, if
You
the
know,
blood is just a response, it's not
Right.
right. It is not right. Exactly. You're exactly right. Yes.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I don't think you could measure the volume of blood in I'm sure you can measure the volume of blood in a muscle, but like how much blood is too much blood in a muscle. I don't know. I have no
Right.
idea. I'm not even gonna pretend to BS that one. I think it has to do with how you're ultimately training. You need to get blood into the muscle, so that's why you do warm up
Mm.
sets, right? Or even something like I'm drawing a blank. It's the whole premise of French contrast.
Yeah, you're talking.
As you keep going, it gets better. What the hell am I
Yeah,
trying
kind
to
of like
say?
a potentiation type thing. Or
Yes, like a post-action
yeah,
potentiation. Yes, thank you. Same kind of concept. Like as more blood gets to the area, that's a good. You need that. But as the muscle shortens, that's where I think you end up, with the fatigue, and that's how it impacts your
right.
performance. Um,
That's it.
yeah.
That's going to be a
You
question.
got anything
Get
to add?
him to kind of get a little bit more specific. Is he referring to, if you're getting that pump? I'm going to use that word pump feeling, and you're pitching. That's probably not a good thing. You're doing something's probably not right. On the flip side, if you're getting that pump feeling in a weight room and you're just doing a general strength training program, traditional type strength training program, I would say that's fine, as long as you give yourself time to recover before you do it again. So, what's the context? I hope you're not getting a
Yeah,
pump when you're
yeah.
throwing off the mound. So,
Yeah, like that's a good way. It's a good way to kind of close that question out. Is really what's the
right,
context of it? But I think like I said, my takeaway on it is muscle fatigue is a muscle shortening. So we got to keep the muscles lengthened if you want to continue to go, and that's kind of a lot of the premise with things like using the impulse machine, or doing ISOs or like utilizing isometrics as recovery, things like that. As you're able to actually, when you time the muscles together and how they work around a joint, you can go for quite a
right.
while because it's working together. You know, I think people don't understand what that means. Is I was actually having this conversation with one of our college soccer girls yesterday, and you got to understand how the muscle actually works. And let's use a squat for example. Okay, a lot like there's still so much debate on what's better, a front squat or back squat or box squat, and you hear it talked about in college programs all the time. And the fact of the matter is like that's not even the question. Like who cares where the bar's positioned when you look at the big picture? You look at the big picture, yes, movements involved, which that's kind of what I like to evaluate. But then you got to look at it from the standpoint of what are you actually teaching the body to do? So actually, let's use a bicep curl instead of the squat. It's a little bit easier to understand. We've talked about, I think before, that the purpose of the bicep is to what? Bring the arm up, right? To flex the elbow, right? All right, bicep does that. Now, triceps' job, though, is to extend the elbow. So if we're training a college athlete with bicep curls, for example, and we're telling them to come up, but then slowly lower the bar back down, well, what you're doing is you're training the muscles to do the wrong thing. It's the triceps' job to extend that elbow and to bring that arm back down. It's not the biceps' job. And so that will ultimately lead to more fatigue as well.
It
Does that make
does.
sense,
So
Chris?
if you are to kind of put that, again, I don't know if this person who asked that question is a pitcher or whatever, but to kind of put it into an athletic perspective, as that pitcher releases the ball, the elbows, heavy flexion, and then as they begin to release, the elbow goes into extension. Again, using the tricep, right? That bicep had better be letting go at that point so that arm can extend at the elbow. Then the
Yeah.
bicep turns on. The quicker, the less time it takes for that bicep to decelerate elbow extension. So as the quicker I can turn that bicep on to stop my elbow from straightening, the better velocity, as a general rule, the better velocity that pitcher can throw with. This, so correct. If you were to the way you strength train, the way a lot of times traditional strength training is done, control the lift, then even more slowly control the lowering. A lot of times that's a little bit backwards the way we use our bodies in sport. We don't generally
Right.
lower or decelerate movement slowly. We usually decelerate very, very rapid movements in sport. So that's yes, that I would agree with you there 100%.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good question. Man, hit us back up with that. Now that we've talked about it a little bit more, give us a little bit more context, and we'll dig into that next Q&A as
Yep.
well. We'll kind of do a follow-up on that one because that is a good question. All right, well, what's question
All
number
right,
2,
so
Chris?
we have collegiate athlete. Again, as a result of what they do for their college sport, they kind of divide up what they do in the weight room versus what they do on the field. So they strength train, more traditional type strength training, kind of piggybacking on the question we just had, and then they go run. Okay, again, there's nothing wrong with that, but as we just discussed, the way you use strength on the field is not always the same as the way you'd use it in a weight room. So her question is, I don't want to keep bulking up. All right, I don't want to keep bulking up. It develops muscle very easily. Okay, muscle mass very easily. I don't want to keep bulking up, but I want to keep my strength, and I want to be able to continue to hit the ball with power. Hit softball with a lot of power. I still want to be able to hit bombs. I just don't want to look like I hit bombs. I'm like, okay, so yeah, just keep the strength,
Right.
keep the power, but I don't want to look bulky. Fair enough. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you go about doing that?
Okay. Good question too. I'll first off say that I am a believer in splitting up strength and speed work. I think in the early days of like high school, middle school, you can mix the training like that and get decent results. But in my opinion, and what I've seen over the years, that it is the athlete gets older, it is important to split these up a little bit. You don't there's a line there, but I don't need to be doing sprints and max effort work, so to speak, like right at the same time. I found that splitting them up a little bit is better. Now, if I am going to do something I will do like some plyometric stuff, prior. Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. If I'm talking about, but like going out and running gassers or conditioning and things like that, I recommend we split that up. I kind of take the bodybuilding mentality to that a little bit and try to let the body adapt. And, ideally, like a bodybuilder, you try to split up like your cardio and your training by about 6 to 8 hours if possible. I kind of recommend the same thing personally. Now, if you're really training, like you're doing something like an absolute strength workout and like a dynamic effort workout later on, then yeah, those do need to be split up during the week. You're not going to get great results there if you're combining the two. But back to the kind of the premise of the question of you're asking how do you maintain your strength without putting on a bunch of size? Is that kind of the premise of the question?
Wants to keep muscle mass somewhat limited while regaining strength and power specifically in this case to softball.
Mm-hmm. Then don't train like a bodybuilder. Don't be doing 8 to 12 reps of of bicep curls and shoulder presses and bench presses. Take your main lifts. If you're going to lift, then utilize your main lift depending on your skill level and abilities and experience. Keep your strength ranges like something as simple like as a 4 sets of 5, like on a basic linear progression. Like you're not meaning like if you're going to, let's say you're doing trap bar deadlift, kind of a basic that everybody does, in some type of strength, strength and conditioning setting, like just keep it basic, like a 4 sets of 5. So find a weight that challenges you for 5 reps, do 4 sets with that. It doesn't need to be failure, maybe 70, 80% effort. It's a challenging. If you can get all 4 sets of 5 reps in week 1, then week 2, you add a little bit of weight. But, week 2, maybe you only get 3 sets with this new weight. So then come into week 3, you got to stay with that weight and keep, and get all 4 sets of 5 reps before you can progress. When you train from that element, if you're truly training strength, you're not going to put the size on like you would if you're training multiple sets to fatigue and to failure like a bodybuilder would. So a bodybuilder is going to take like on a bigger muscle group like a chest or a back, like what 20-ish sets, 25 sets, something like that. If you're doing high volume, smaller muscle groups, maybe 16 to 18 sets, something like that. And so with an athlete, you don't need to worry about that. Like you hit your main lift and then you do your speed work or conditioning or whatever else it is that you have programmed. It's going to be all that assistance work that is really going to create the hypertrophy and create the size that you're saying. Now I'll also go on a tangent and say, look, like I'm going to be real with you that you're not going to get big. Like it's not going to happen. Okay. Like women that say, hey, I get bulky or I look too muscular, like bulky's the better way. If I get bulky, no, well, you're bulky because your body fat's too high. Okay. You simply lack the hormones to be able to build a ton of muscle. It's biology. Whatever, I don't care what California has to say about gender and all that. Biology is biology, okay? You don't have the testosterone to do that. So if you feel like there's a lot of bulk that's occurring, then that's probably going to be a nutritional or a body fat type issue. And you should probably drop the body fat down a little bit. But maintain the strength, main lift, 4 sets of 5. It's the assistance work that's going to build a lot of that extra size that I think you're probably concerned about. Does that answer her question?
I believe
Chris?
so.
And
I don't think I asked the question this way, but I do believe she was asking more along the lines of supplementary training because her school trainer actually sets the program that they do. So she's asking for specifically, I believe, supplementary type work. And of course, my response to her, since she's already doing the lifting sets, reps, or whatever, that's already being determined.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Then since you already have your strength training program, you already have your running program, you already have your conditioning, your on the field work, etc. That's a perfect time to be focusing in on altitudes, rebounds, and ISO extremes. I mean, so let's recover.
Yeah, exactly. I guess I misunderstood the question.
I don't think I even asked it. That's why it's kind of hard to.
Oh,
right.
Okay. I guess I didn't misunderstand it. But yes, I would agree with you 100%. Yeah, you don't need to be doing more concentric or like weight-based work. Take that opportunity to do, like your ISOs, your rebounds, which if you're working with Chris, I'm sure you know how to do all those. I'd say the same thing with my athletes. I usually do a lot more. I mean, we do that, but we do a lot of recode work with it as well. So I have them doing a lot of go-to theory, like a lot of, back chain dominant, not like RDL type stuff, more like, back chain, like setting the bow, setting the corners, but, so we're talking about the same thing. It's just, I do a little bit more of like the movement go-to type thing as well. But like I said, ISOs, rebounds, it's another good option to work on your mobility and stuff too. Like, I mean,
right,
do that.
Right. And so really either way, regardless of if she's looking for more primary training or she's looking more for supplementary, she's got an answer either way. So there you go.
Yeah. But like, I want to ask you about the speed thing, because, you're kind of the speed guru here, like there's research kind of all over the place. And, my takeaway has always been, if you're going to do some type of speed or plyometric, do it at the beginning, but as the athlete gets more, special, I don't want to say specialized, I hate that word, as they get older and more advanced, like you're going to get more benefit by splitting this up. And this is not French contrast or like, that type. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about gassers, conditioning, all that. Like, I just want to hear your thoughts on that. Well, it's
kind of interesting because I've kind of come back and forth. I guess that, yes, I agree. The traditional sense is skill first, power, would be, any power training, plyometrics, etc., speed work would be done second, then your general strength training third, and then more your mobility. I've kind of gotten away from believing that now because I've seen so many people where that just doesn't matter. Let me give you an example. I'm going to give you an example from Jay Schroeder. Then I'm going to give you a couple of examples from my own experience of kids I've trained. Jay trained, and this was actually a testimonial I had on one of his videos they had on YouTube. a professional tennis player. And she came in, she said, I have no idea what my workout's going to be. I might do 300 glute ham raises. She's just giving all these examples. And she's like, I should have to go into tennis practice exhausted. And how in the world am I going to move on the court? She's like, but yet I go out and I have the best practice I've ever had in my life. And on the other hand, I've had cases. Sorry, I'm getting a little messed up here with my microphone. Anyway, I've had a couple of cases where people have asked, well, can we work out and then go do our pitching lesson? And I used to say, I need to do your pitching lesson first. Now I'm like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Because I'm
the same
if
way.
we train you the right way, you finish your training, you go get a little snack or whatever, you're going to be just fine. And
I have the exact same approach.
So,
yep.
Number one, they're young. Number two, we train them the right way. Their muscles are recover very quickly because of the way we train them.
Right.
And there you go. So.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you at all. I think when I look at kind of a general format, I think of how I like to, implement my workouts is, if we're going to do a lot of speed work, I typically will, if I have full control over, their program, I tend to do that like towards the end of the week, so to speak. And in the beginning of the week, we're doing a little bit more strength work. All of it is always based on movement and all that. But usually every workout is going to have some type of, low level plyometric, exercise or 2 or 3 in there, depending on kind of what phase I'm in and what I'm doing. Obviously, towards the end of the week, as I focus a little more on power speed side of stuff, then I'll go a little bit more high intensity with that. But, you're right. I think when you train the right way, the recovery side of it is going to be like, you'll be able to recover and go do your pitching lesson. I'm talking about like the adaptation side of it. Like, how is the body going to adapt the most? And I think that's where we could probably talk for another 2 hours on that topic. But that's where I kind of feel like splitting them up just a little bit tends to give the adaptation side of it, the best chance in succeeding. And it's where auto regulation and all that type of stuff comes in. But that's a really good question. We could branch off on a lot of things on that one. Okay. All right. Question number 3, third and final question for today. This was a high schooler in the area sent this to us. Can you hit the same muscle groups days in a row if you're using different types of efforts and methods, such as max effort method or dynamic effort method?
Well, that's a good question. And yet I think a lot of times it depends on the principles similar to what we just discussed. So let's say, that person's very good, especially on their dynamic, they call it dynamic effort. We're talking about speed, basically fast. Yeah.
Power, fast. Like lower into power, like, speed area. Yeah.
So is that person pulling down, pushing up on a squat? I mean, pulling themselves down into the squat, pushing back up. That's totally different than if they're kind of lowering themselves down into the squat and pushing up fast. They're not the same.
Right.
Same thing on a bench press, same thing on a deadlift. And again, we're using, the reason why I'm bringing up squat, bench press, deadlift is because those were the lifts that the whole, the theory of,
that conjugate system type of mentality.
Correct. So it came from the powerlifting.
Yeah. And I talk in those terms a lot because I think it makes sense to people. I think, and so I know where this kid is I know where he's going with it, but keep going. Even though that may not be how we do everything, but I know where he's coming from. I think you do too. Yeah, I didn't.
No, absolutely. So if he's doing a lot of things where he's actually engaging the opposite muscle. So again, you're turning on the agonist and lengthening the antagonist. So as you're doing the bicep curl, is that tricep fully relaxing, and then bicep fully relaxing as I execute the tricep, and so on. If he's doing that, he could work out 7 days a week and he could be fine.
Right.
Because he's going to recover so quickly, assuming his eating is okay and his sleep is good. But,
you You guys hear that? Like, you hear that? You could train every day as long as your eating and your sleep is good.
Yeah. You eat, you sleep, and it's
Yes.
like,
I want to hammer that in there.
so, that doesn't mean you never take a day off. It just means that your body can recover given the right stimulus. But then again, you can also tear it down really fast if you if you do a lot of, like, I'm not against slow negatives, slow lowering of weight. Okay, I'm not against that. But
Yeah.
that's usually, again, if we're talking about an athlete, that's usually not how your muscles are used in sport. And years ago,
Right. Exactly.
even a generation older than me, okay, that that goes back a ways.
So, like
The
the Romans
Romans,
or something?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, probably even, yeah, maybe the Renaissance, okay?
all right.
So let's go.
Oh, okay.
That back then, they did not really do a lot of weight room training, and they felt like it made them slow. So the
Mhm.
reason why they thought that was because it did. If you do a lot of this super slow lowering of weight, and then even if you lift it as fast as you can lift it, that lowering slow, say on a squat, I'm going to use a squat, you're using your thigh muscles, your quadriceps, to control the slowness, or how slowly you're lowering that weight. Then you're using the quadriceps again to lift the weight. Where in reality, we use hamstring to pull down and quadriceps to push back up. Hamstrings, quads, hamstrings, quads, hamstrings, quads. I'm making a very simple example here. It's a
Yeah.
little more complicated than that, but it's
This kid's smart enough.
it's on
He gets
off.
it.
It's so it's getting a muscle to turn on and then shut off so the opposite side can turn on. Not shut off, lengthen. Okay. I'm gonna Jay Schroeder will get on to me for saying that. Get a muscle to shorten and then lengthen, and then doing that over and over and over again. If we do that, you can train twice a day, 7 days a week, and you would be just fine. Again, assuming you're eating okay and you're sleeping okay and all that's good. So,
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. I really don't have anything to add to that other than just kind of clarifying the methods and the
yes.
terminology there. I think in a simplistic sense, you can train the same muscle every day as long
Yep.
as the stimulus is different,
Yep.
so to speak. All right. So that's kind of number one there. All right. So the other side of it is understanding what max effort and dynamic effort methods are. So conjugate method, Louis Simmons, West Side, all that stuff. Like that's kind of a powerlifting type of theory. But the conjugate method is really cool because you can manipulate it for athletics to a degree. Like, and that's kind of the cool thing about it. But a lot of the conjugate method is, okay, you have max effort days and you have dynamic effort days. Now, like I said, you even heard me answering the other question. I still kind of like to use that theory. I mean, it works to a degree, right, for athletes. But it does, the muscle you're training doesn't necessarily matter, okay? When you really look at the conjugate method, it's going to be about the lift and the efforts that you're putting in with percentages, not necessarily the muscles, okay? So think about a runner. Like, I'm not a long distance runner guy.
Right. Me neither.
Period. There's no discussion there. You're not gonna get me to do it. So, but what's a runner do? They'll go on a long run on a Saturday or whatever, right? And then what do they do on a Sunday? Well, they go for like a little recovery run, right? And so they use their legs on Saturday, and then what they do on Sunday? Did they use their arms? No, they use their legs. Again, it's a different stimulus. And that's the point that I'm going to hammer home with that is, understanding really what those two methods mean. And they're about developing qualities, not muscle, qualities. Absolute strength, speed, strength, and speed. Okay? Max effort, dynamic effort, not muscle. All right? So I hope that clarifies it. Both Chris and I's take on that, because you can train the same muscle every day as long as the stimulus is different, and if you're doing it the right way, lengthening and making the muscles work the way they should, like Chris was saying. So anything else?
I think that's good. It's it's I think there's if I don't know if there's a more besides nutrition science, I don't know if there's anything that's more poorly understood than strength training and recovery. I just worked out. Don't I need to wait, skip a day? Well, maybe not. I mean, it depends,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, if you're an athlete training like a bodybuilder, yeah. I mean, I just that it hits a nerve. That really, I hate
Yeah,
that. It drives me insane. Athletes that train like bodybuilders. I mean, there's a time and place for some isolation stuff, yes, but when you go in and go train back and then legs and then chest and the shoulders and then arms and then another arm day, like that is not how
right.
athletes train, you know. And we actually are going to have an IFBB Pro coming on here in the next month or so, and they're going to talk about that a little bit as well. We won't release that name and everything just yet, but I trained a lot of bodybuilders. I've trained a couple people for their IFBB Pro cards. I've trained a lot of NPC competitors as well. I've competed once before. I got my ass absolutely kicked, and it was a great experience. I loved it, But if you're an athlete,
Right.
don't train like a bodybuilder. That's kind of
Yep.
a whole other conversation. But man,
Yeah.
these were great questions, Chris. Like as the podcast continues to grow and like we continue to reach more people as you guys keep sharing the show like you are, these questions are flooding in, man. Like I've got a binder full of them. So don't think if you submitted a question we hadn't gotten to it yet, don't think that I'm ignoring it or Chris is ignoring it. Like we kind of we have these. We can only answer so many questions at one time. So we'll get to your questions. These are really good questions, and I'm gonna tell you, we're gonna answer the good ones, the thoughtful ones. If you just ask what the best exercise for chest is, like I'm not answering that. My time's more valuable than that. You know. So yeah, that's how we're gonna go about it. Keep the questions coming in, guys. You know the rule. The rule is to share the show, please. Right? Share the show. We do this for y'all. We do this for the community. We do this to help get the information out there, and so all of us can think critically and grow and develop. And as we always talk about, the goal is to help build our communities up to the level of the major markets across the country. And the Mid-South, I say the Mid-South, that's not just where we are. That's Chris's area as well. Guys, there's a lot of potential in our communities, and we want to help grow it as best as we can, man. So share the show, please. Chris, you got anything you want to add?
All good. 5-star review. 5-star review. Yep.
Yeah, yes. 5-star review. All right. We appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Share the
Thanks.
show. See ya.